How is everybody doing? Today we had a request on how to do shading in my comics. So I'm going to show you how I've done shading. I have two methods. I have the quick method, which I use mainly for if I'm making comics and whatnot, and the more deliberate, the slower method, which for better artwork I'm actually playing and printing and stuff like that, uh, tends to look a little better. Now there's multiple ways to shade, but I'm going to show you my quick method and my more detailed method. So here I have a circle. I'm going to start off with just a basic concept of theory. So here I have the circle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create two layers. One's going to be for brightness, one's going to be for darkness. So light and dark. And I'm going to limit it to the circle. So to achieve that, I basically just go to layer and I'm using Adobe CS5 here. I hit hit Alt, and then I select the layer I want to constrict it to. So what this means is whenever I draw on this layer, will be limited to the circle. I can't draw anything outside the circle while I'm on that layer. Okay, so first thing you have to do is you have to figure out where you want your light source. So it could be in front, it could be back. It depends on where your light, honestly, where your light's going to be. Because obviously shading is basically drawing shadows on the object, and it helps to achieve a more 3D effect. So my light source is going to be right here. This is my light source. I'm going to go on the circle. I'm just going to draw. There you go. So first layer, I'm going to make the first layer my shading layer. Actually, I'll name it shading. Don't always do that, but I'll do it for now. And I'm just going to make this so my light's up here, light will be beaming down, and anything that will not be in the lights area will be this will be here. Now, turn up my brush, make it a little bigger, make this easier. There you go. So yeah, right there. Okay, so basically this area where I drew the black would be the shadow, will be the where the shading is. So I'm going to turn the opacity down. Now, if it's really bright out, I would have a lower opacity, so 50%. Or if it's dark, or if the surroundings are very dark, I might go with a higher opacity. My normal is around the 20% area, 20-22% area. Now gives me a little bit of a 2D effect, and this is generally what I do for most comics. I just do shading. Now, sometimes I want to do something to really emphasize the lights coming on. So again, I'm going to go to the second layer, and I'm going to rename it lighting. You don't have to. I'm just doing it for demo here. Going to go to white. I'm going to draw where light's coming on, the direct spot where the light's hitting. I could change the opacity again, depending on the scenario. So really bright, or it's not so bright. And this will achieve a little bit of a 3D look. Now you can also, if you want, you can also go and add a filter, blur. So I'm going to add a blur to this lighting area and make it a little bit less obvious. There you go. Do it again, maybe I'll make it a little less obvious. I'm working very high resolution right now, so this is the reason. So that's the gist of it. Now I'm going to show you the actual character. So here we have Genie. Again, I'm going to make two layers. One for darkness, one for shading. Oops. I tried that. There you go. Shading, and one for lighting. I don't always label them, but you can if you want to. You don't have to. And again, I'm going to restrict it by tapping on the layers while holding Alt, and that will restrict it so anything that is done is being added to this color layer. As I've usually do, I have line art, then I have the color layer behind the line art, and whatnot. Okay, so this quick method of doing this. The quick method is very simple. Because I'm making a lot of comics and whatnot, and I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours shading, I have this quick method. And what I do is I take the lasso tool, I make sure it's in the add, and I will lasso where I want my shading to be. So remember, I'm going with the sun up here. Now when you're lassoing with the add tool on, basically what's doing is it's basically adding each lasso I make, it's adding it to what's already there. That's why you want to do with the add tool on. If you don't do it with the this add button hit, then I'll just give you an example. So now I took it off, the add's off. So now I drew a lasso and everything I did before is gone. So that's why you want to do it with the add. And you could use the subtract and the intersect, depending on what you want to accomplish. Yeah, it's gonna take a second here to finish up here. Like I said, it's gonna be a quick job. Okay, and that's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be a quick job. Okay, so now that I've lassoed everything everywhere I want to have shading, like I said, the sun is up above our head. I'm gonna basically color in black. That's all black, and I'm gonna change the opacity to about 20%, which is about my average. So there you go. You add a little bit of a 3D dimension, and you can do the same thing for lighting. Now, light you don't need to do as much for lighting because it doesn't really, it adds a 3D dimension, especially when you're doing something like mirror or whatnot, or reflective surfaces, but it doesn't really add much, just a general. So I'm just doing some quick lighting. I'm going to switch to light later. Instead of using black for shading, I'm going to use white. Again, bring it down to something more reasonable. I don't do light a lot, so I'm going to take it to something that looks good for what I want. And because I want to diffuse my light a little bit more, I'm going to go and add a filter, blur to it, make it a little bit less obvious. You can do this with the shading too, depending on what you're going for, what your aim is. So that is the gist of how I do shading. It gives a little more of a 3D look to the character. Now that's the quick method. I'm going to delete these two methods. I'm going to go show you, actually I'm going to do it with the bottle. If you look at the bottle here, I was actually doing this a little bit earlier, and I messed up and I put it in the wrong layer. But I'm gonna shade it in the red in the bottom area. So again, add 2 layers to the bottle. Oops, I don't want that. Okay, so shading. And lighting. Okay, so here's the second method. The second method, instead of using a lasso tool, I'm going to use the paintbrush. And I'm going to choose a paintbrush that has a little bit softer edge on it. So again, going to restrict this so it just goes in the bottle. And I'm going to go with black. And I'm going to change the opacity on the brush itself. So not on the layer, but on the brush. So I'm going to go down to, you can play around here with what you want. I'm going to use 17% right now. And as long as I'm drawing, I don't lift up my pen on my tablet here. Everything I color is going to be basically a single shade of black. And you can see how it shades in. Now, the moment I lift up my pen and I go over the same spot again, it's going to put another shade of black on. So you basically just make it how you want. If you want to have multiple layers and make it really look really, a little bit darker, and then a little bit darker again, you can accomplish this. So there's the bottle. I'm going to go to lighting. Do the same thing. I'm going to use white instead of black. And because it's a bottle, I want it to be a little more obvious because it's a lot more reflectability on the bottle than Genie. Genie doesn't really reflect that well. So I'm going to make it a little more obvious. I'm going to go over multiple times. and that's shading on the bottle. So you can see, ignoring this part here because this is a little screw up I did earlier. You can see how the shading looks in the bottle. That is basically the quick and the non-quick method of shading. Now, a couple things I would suggest you play around with. When you're doing your shading, you want to watch out for things like this where you miss little spots. Often I'll go back through and just using black. Oops, it's on white. Black. Why am I not working? Oh, oh yes, because my opacity is still. Remember when you change settings, you got to change it back. So you just go and you spot stuff you missed or you want to add with the paintbrush. And it's all, how you want to do it. I'm not going to say you're right and wrong. And there's a couple other things you do. A lot of people like to use a dark blue color, and multiply. Change their layer properties to multiply. That you could do that. Usually when I'm coloring whites, when I'm putting shading over white, instead of using black, I'll use a dark blue. So I use a dark blue here. And the same method, I'm going to color her eyes here. Just the very edge of her eyes. Because it's really the only thing white in this diagram. And it helps give that not so, not black effect. But you don't have to do that. You basically play around and find a method that works for you. This is the quick method I use to make artwork or make comics. And then the more detailed is what I did in the bottle. And you can do that. You just play around. You find something that works for you. Okay, so that's how I do shading on my characters. So if you have anything you want to request, you like these how-to series. I'm a self-learned artist, so I'm not gonna necessarily teach you everything the same as a professional would. I just teach you how I do it. But if you have a request, you want to see this done or that done, or how to draw Genie, how do you do this, how you do that, you feel free to put down a request on the comments, and I'll happily do it if I can. Also, if you like my videos, thumbs up. If you don't like it, thumbs down. Either one's good. I would prefer thumbs up, but either one's good. And let me know what you think. If you want to see more of these how-tos, I'm more happy to make them. So, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all enjoy drawing.